One step closer to war with China last week, and where's Australia? With so many of our old submarines needing repairs that we started this year with just one ready for action. Meanwhile, the big Chinese Coast Guard ship nearly rammed a Filipino patrol vessel to get it to leave a part of the South China Sea that China has stolen.
China has indisputable sovereignty over islands in the South China Sea and their adjacent water.
And then that captain who's had that message read out, nearly rammed that Filipino vessel. And that occurred in a part of the South China Seas that China now says it owns. And the US has issued a statement in response warning China an armed attack on a Philippines vessel will invoke America's mutual defence commitments to the Philippines. You know where that then leads. Joining me is Peter Jennings, is Director of Strategic Analysis Australia, and he was among the very first to warn us some years ago now that China had turned aggressive. Peter Jennings, thank you so much for your time. The confrontation between China and the Philippines last week, how serious is this? I mean, is this the kind of thing, seemingly innocuous maybe, but is this the kind of thing that could actually one day maybe trigger a war?
It's very serious, Andrew. We have the Chinese Navy and Air Force behaving in the most reckless fashion around China's coast in the South China Sea and up north towards Taiwan, buzzing aircraft and ships. In this particular case, a very large Chinese Coast Guard vessel came within 100 or so metres of a small Philippines vessel, forcing the Philippines commander to veer away. These are the sorts of games of chicken which could lead at some stage to a ship being sunk or an aircraft being shot out of the sky. That doesn't necessarily lead to all-out war, but it could, because who could be confident that China is going to manage a sort of ladder of escalation, as the military people would call it, effectively, and then cease further military action. And sooner or later, something really bad is going to happen when you have overly aggressive commanders sort of doing these things in order to burnish their promotion skills, but being very reckless in the process, risking lives and certainly risking major military incidents.
I think that's the thing that really struck me, again, with their pilots and now with this Navy commander. The hyper-nationalism, the hyper-aggression, it just seems some of them don't have a filter at all, and that's rather quite freaky. Meanwhile, back home, Peter Jennings, the ABC's Four Corners is reporting we had so many submarines, the existing Collins-class ones that we do have are ageing, so many problems with some of them that we had only one submarine ready for service early this year. Only one for the entire seas to our north in particular. That seems to me a scandal.
Well, it's very concerning, Andrew, and one conventional submarine available really means that you only have a limited period of weeks that a boat like that could be on operational patrol, because where they operate, it takes a considerable amount of time to get to far up north. And because they're conventional boats and they have to surface in order to breathe, they're not going to be militarily effective for very long. With 6 Collins submarines, you might expect to have 2 ready to go at any one time. But, you have an incident, a fire or a leak or something of that nature, and then you're down to 1. Really what this means is that we do not have a viable submarine capability at this very moment beyond what one submarine might be able to do for a short period of weeks. And for the investment of billions of dollars which has gone into this capability, frankly, it isn't good enough. And here's the other problem. It's clearly not easily fixable, indeed for many, many years, perhaps a decade, until such time as we have the nuclear submarines coming online.
Honestly, it just staggers me. I mean, this has, as you say, cost billions. It's not only that we only just got one submarine, it would by some miracle have to be in the one spot of the ocean that could make a difference if anything did happen. I mean, this is just this is just amazing. Peter Jennings, you have been warning for some time about the China threat, right? You have constantly said, we're not prepared, we're not... Now we get the other day the new Defence Strategic Review into, yes, this is serious. Yes, China is the problem. Yes, we've got to do much more. But no, there won't be extra dollars really to fund it. I mean, is this country Rip Van Winkle? Are we asleep at the wheel? How do you explain the fact that we're so unprepared?
I think we are paying the price for decades of underinvestment in defence, thinking that the Americans will carry the security burden for us. And of course, what we're seeing in the United States is the Americans are tired of that. And, you know, we're dealing with the implications of a much more aggressive China, bringing this threat much more close to Australia. This is not about us picking wars that we might choose to be involved in or not in the Middle East. I find it particularly amazing right now that we have the combination of all those factors that you've said, an acknowledgement of the risk, acknowledgement that the Defence Force is frankly not up to the current task, but no new money. It's a case of monkey see, but monkey not doing anything at this point. And it just tells me that the current government is not giving the priority to our strategic situation that they should. And therefore, we are moving into a very risky period in the middle of the decade. That's the time when people are most worried about a potential Chinese attack on Taiwan, for which Australia is not going to be ready.
I wonder if it's a reflection of a national will. I noticed stories today, quoting you as well, people, senior military experts, analysts, etc., saying that we've got such a problem now, even encouraging Australians to serve as soldiers and airmen, etc., that we're going to have to consider taking in a foreign legion, as it were, people from Polynesia or whatever, someone who will fight. I mean, it's just quite extraordinary to me. Peter Jennings, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.